Hey everybody, welcome back to Quali-Tea time. So, it's a new month, which usually means that the first thing I open with is news on Patreon, but actually I got a surprise, package recently, and I will not, of course, really allow people to get this to me because I currently don't have the tier to, enable access to a post box. But some people, in particular, decided to use some rather unusual channels of communication, and sent me this, which is a signed by George Romero and Tom Savini poster for Dawn of the Dead. I don't really have words. Besides, wow! This is a Gott im Himmel kind of moment. There's even, verification that indeed this has actually been signed by the real George Romero, and presumably the real Tom Savini, although photographic evidence of that is not included. And just, wow. Honestly, there is so much on this poster alone that I can geek out about, because I love this movie. But just, wow. So, thank you very much to Clover, otherwise known as Schledsgorn. I'm not entirely sure how you pronounce that, but that's your handle, so yay. On to the more conventional news, whilst my brain attempts to slow down slightly. Of course, it is a new month. It is August, which means that Patreon has refreshed. So if you are a new patron, then go over to the Patreon to drop in to the comment section. I'll put a big blog post up for it. All the details of your rewards, so things like you want to hear me say in an audio file, or your username for being able to undermine, or what name you'd like to see yourself under inside of Edgington. We have had a recent glut of patron additions on Edgington because the food has gone crazy, so people are more likely to be getting that a lot sooner. And the other piece of news that we have for this month is that I'm finally starting a new Minecraft RP series. I know people have been waiting for a new one for a little bit, and I took July off expressly. I think I actually only really ended up using the first half of July as a rest for that, but after doing the return where I was voicing pretty much every single character, I figured I needed a slight rest, and I was trying to figure out what I was going to do for the next series. So the next RP series is named Mating Do, and it will feature everyone's favourite cleaner of the multiverse, Maid Lying. So you'll finally get to be introduced to them proper. They do have a Forbidden Lying video on the list, but graphics card explosions and hard drive failures meant that I am sorely lacking in funds for most things, including paying the wonderful Sam for that particular pieces of artwork. So those are on hold until my finances stabilize, hopefully sometime this month. Otherwise, if you have some spare cash, drop for the donation page, because that's a thing as well. Anyways, on to the schedule. Thursday, of course, we have an instance of Midnight Stories at 11 PM BST over at twitch.tv/lyinginbedmon. We'll be going back to Minecraft Story Mode because there's at least one, maybe even two episodes that I haven't played yet. On Friday, we have the first episode of Mating Do, our new RP series. On Saturday, we have XCOM 2 getting some brand new toys because by popular demand I finally started adding weapon upgrades. We also have an instance of D&D Anima at 9 PM BST over at twitch.tv/thedragonhat. Then on Sunday, we have the Undermine episode with rail systems being worked on in the Ravine Town. And on Tuesday, we have Edgington being a bit more bright as the continent gains a bit more light, and we get a few more people to try and fight. And of course, we have Yokto's Live number 57 at 9 PM BST over at twitch.tv/lyinginbedmon. Lastly, on Wednesday, we have an episode of Dungeon Maker where I work on the main storage that I started working on in the previous episode, including fully gathering all of the Elder Guardians as well as showing off a neat little elevator design. So, on to the questions. As per usual, these are drawn from the comments section of the preceding video, so if you have something you'd like to ask me, then drop it in there and we'll see if it gets answered. So, our first question of the day comes from Scott Davis. Is it true that Brexit came about chiefly through fear of foreigners? Oh boy. To say that it was a minor point would be a complete and utter lie. It wasn't the only point. There was some arguments that we were being meddled with too much by European policy, which is ridiculous because we set half of it, and we also, helped found the place. Well, we didn't found it, we joined later on, but we were a big controlling influence in Europe. And once it kind of came up, like, the only reason that the referendum happened at all was because of UKIP, the UK Independence Party, you can probably tell from the name what their plan was, had a surprising volume of political influence in the last election, so David Cameron, who has now resigned in the wake of the referendum result, promised them that we'd have a referendum because he, like most reasonably lucid and sane people, expected it to completely, utterly fail. There are some people who believe that that was actually the plan, that they would fail and they would be seen as the underdog that was beaten by the system that needs reform and all that. And when UKIP got the chance, they started campaigning and saying all of these horror stories that were vastly untrue, that if we pulled out we could get more money into the NHS, that's not true, that if we pulled out we'd get more control over our borders, that's not true, pointing out all manner of non-white people in positions of authority, the Mayor of London, for example, and just, yeah, basically racism got inflamed, and we are now looking at increasing rights and fascism and all sorts, and it's utterly abominable, and I'm frankly very heavily disappointed in my fellow countrymen, because this is just ridiculous. This is abominable. We were literally on the forefront of World War II. We should know better than this. But no, here we go again. On slightly more positive topics, Linus Knudsen, or Knudsen, I'm guessing it's a silent K, asks, how did you get to know Monkey, Mikachi, Dragon, and Muffins? It more or less comes around from Dragon, but Monkey and Mikachi I originally met inside of Anacom at my university way back in the day. Monkey, I think, discovered me via my videos and realized he recognized me from Anacom. I can't quite remember, this is quite a while ago. And Mikachi, of course, is dating Monkey, so I met her via that. Dragon I met via LXG and Dave Chaos back in the Tech It days, when for some unknown reason Dave added me to the server as like their tech expert, which was a position I held quite faithfully for quite a while, and then I started making videos and changed a bit. So from there I met Dragon, because Dragon was part of LXG at the time, so consequently everything muddled, and I had a lot of fun messing with Dragon via the mining turtle that he kept in his basement, more or less, and just let it run. And then Muffins I met via Dragon once we started setting up the second group for Dungeons and Dragon hats, which was when we started the previous campaign, which was Edgekirk, or the Cityscape campaign, because I had been DM of the preceding campaign, which was Marshall's Ghost, which was a lot of fun, and ended a bit soon, but I'll admit I kind of was wavering a little bit on that one anyways. But yeah, that is how I got to know them, and I'm definitely a better man for it, I would say. Last question for the day is from Resender. Why not just build a tunnel to Edgerton and seal it off at the mainland? Firstly, it's really hard to work in water in timber and stone, because your people cannot place blocks or mine blocks whilst they're standing in water. In fact, most actions in general, apart from movement, are disabled for all entities whilst you're in water, unless you're Aeneas and can apparently become Jesus. So building stuff in water requires a lot of effort. You pretty much need to build a mold around it and then systematically remove that mold from the bottom up. So that's a problem. The second problem is it's actually advantageous to have water around an area, because most things, like a number of high-profile enemies such as skeletons, necromancers, and spiders, I think, cannot enter water. Well, skeletons can, but they can't swim, so they can't actually get to anything that's on top of the water. Other things can swim in water, but in doing so they move slower, and they cannot attack, which makes them sitting ducks for archers. So it is ultimately better, I believe, to have a path that you know enemies will be at a severe disadvantage going through, like a bog, if you will, than a path that you know they'll eventually target anyways, and wander all the way through where your archers will probably be shooting at someone else's back. So the moat idea, I believe, has greater strategic value in this context than building a tunnel to the mainland, such as the Channel Tunnel being a decent example of something like that. And that's it for this week. I hope you've all enjoyed. I've been lying in bed when this has been Quali-Tea time. I shall catch you all next week. See you then.